Hi, District 56. This week I wanted to talk about how you can collaborate with your colleagues and think about increasing student investment in their learning. Thinking about your teaching, I wanted to equip you with some tools that you can use to increase student engagement. So that's what we'll explore today. We're going to go back to our good friend John Hattie and think through some ideas that he outlines from the Distance Learning Playbook in 10 Mind Frames for Visible Learning. Specifically, one change you can make, which is clarifying the learning objective and making sure that you share that with students. Visibility of learning objectives and addressing the success criteria lead to the fact that learners can better understand where they are in the learning process, where they have their strengths and weaknesses, and where the dissonance between the can do and the cannot yet do lies. Maybe you're asking, why is it so important to share what students are learning? It's because we're thinking about the whole child. If we share with students what they're learning and why they're learning it, we are addressing the student's identity as a thinker and a learner in the world. We're developing their sense of self-commitment and their sense and confidence that they can achieve the learning goals. We're helping them see where they fall, what's realistic for their own abilities, and then we're giving them also the structure for the conceptual understanding, the academic piece. Maybe you've noticed more of the disrupting, avoiding, or withdrawing behavior. And we want to think about how to move into more of the participating, investing, and driving behavior. In the past, we've typically defined engagement by participating, kids who are doing the work or paying attention or raising their hands and responding to questions. We want to use this opportunity of distance learning to think about how can we get kids to invest in their learning, ask questions, value what they're learning, and then ultimately, how can we enable them to be drivers in their learning? How can we help them set goals, get feedback from us to do better, and how to think about where they fall in a continuum of success? One way we can get students to move into the driving area of engagement is to be aware of their current level of understanding and then to also give them the tools to monitor their progress and adjust their learning and opportunities to teach one another. So we're going to do that by giving you the opportunity to reflect and be really clear with what the week's learning targets or intentions are in establishing success criteria, and then also giving students the option to reflect on their learning. How well did they understand what was going on in class today? What questions can they ask about what you were talking about in class today? Thinking about the teacher tool, this is just a quick snapshot. I know a lot of teams already have documents that they're sharing and planning with and collaborating on together, but I just want to highlight this week's learning intentions and targets and the success criteria. If as a team, you and your colleagues could add in a brief conversation about this and just really be clear and specific with what you're focusing on in your classrooms, and then turning it into student-friendly terms and I can statements, that could be a monumental shift that you're sharing with students and helping them move into the driver's seat of their education. I know it might feel awkward to think about having to focus and clearly state your learning objectives, but think about how clear and easier it will be for students to understand why they're doing what they're doing when there are 17,000 other distractions for them at home. So I want to share two different learning objectives that I've been working with teachers on, just so you can see an example of what's been going on in other classrooms. Our first example of an I can statement comes from a first grade class and reading lesson. If they're working on identifying author, illustrator of books, and then restating the events in the story and defining the setting, if the teacher spends a minute and talks through, readers need to know where the story takes place so they can picture it in their minds. They can understand why the characters are doing what they're doing. And then all of a sudden, if students, as they're reading the book, can start to define the setting in their own words, that teacher has developed a sense of confidence and engagement in the story and an ability of the student to see themselves as a reader. That's a really powerful shift that's just taken place. In an 8th grade classroom, if students are working on writing a review stating and defending their opinion of an artist's work and editing their writing so it follows standard conventions, if they see they can do those two things, they're starting to develop their own voice as a writer and develop an understanding of why it's so important for them to capitalize their letters and use punctuation. because they want their voice as a writer to be heard and read and shared. And so all of a sudden, we're not just having them complete an assignment, we're helping them develop who they are as writers. Okay, thinking about I can statements leads us into students setting goals and assessing their learning. So I shared this copy of student reflection form with you. When you open it, you'll click make a copy. And anytime you want to share an exit ticket from here, you can just come back to this email and copy the link again and open it. So I divided it into two sections. Section 1 is really more the academic side, setting some goals for early in the week, thinking about how kids engaged in the lesson, giving them the opportunity to share some input. How do they feel about school? Thinking about learning objectives or asking questions about the learning objectives. So those section 1 is academics. Section 2 is about kids' social and emotional wellness. That's thinking about maybe how are things going with class participation, or how was their mood and how they're feeling, just to get a little bit of a sense of what's going on with them. But let's say it's Monday and I want to ask some questions to set the intentions for the week. I don't need this social emotional section for right now. I'm just going to click these 3 dots and delete the section. Now, this is too long as it is because I tried to make this like a master list of everything you could choose. I'm going to delete the source because kids don't need to see that. And I'm just going to really focus on what are your goals for the week, what strategies will you use to meet them, how confident are you you'll meet them, and how can I help you? I'm going to delete everything else that comes after that. So I'm going to click on the question, delete it. See how they feel about school, delete it. I'm not using these. Next time I open this document, it will be here if I go back to the copy link. So every time you make a copy of it, you get a fresh start and you can customize this however you want. Now I'm going to think about how ready are they to learn in class this week? How can I help them and their goals? That's it. Really quick form to open up class on Monday, 10/5 goal setting. Now it's ready for me to share with students. I am the owner. I'll see my kids' responses right here.